As the king and queen leave the thrones and head for the exit of Westminster Abbey of the coronation Saturday, you'll see that everyone bows and curtsies to the king, and no one moves a limb, a muscle, when Camilla passes.
The meeting was supposed to last 20 minutes. Instead, it ended with Camilla pushing back her chair, staring across the table in disbelief, and walking out before the archivists had finished speaking. At the center of the room sat a sealed diary bearing Diana's private mark, and beside it, a written instruction naming Princess Charlotte as its intended recipient. In one stunning moment, a voice buried for decades had returned to the heart of the monarchy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles felt the tension before anyone spoke. He sat beside Camilla as William, Catherine, and Princess Anne faced archivists at Windsor. A royal archivist preserves records and documents connected to the monarchy. Their inventory of Diana's papers had uncovered something capable of disturbing the family and crown. The chief archivist placed a blue diary on the table. He explained that it had remained hidden inside a locked case, transferred from an overlooked Spencer family deposit. The Spencer family was Diana's birth family, and the deposit held belongings in private custody. William studied the faded ribbon as Catherine watched him, and Anne remained motionless. Then the truth landed. Diana had left the diary for Princess Charlotte. Her instructions stated that it should reach her granddaughter only when custodians believed she was mature enough to understand it. Charlotte had not been born when those words were written, yet Diana had prepared them for a girl standing close to the crown. Camilla did not hide her shock. She demanded to know why nobody had warned her, and why the transfer had been presented as final. William refused permission for anyone to open the diary before Charlotte was informed. He would not allow his mother's instruction to become another palace negotiation. The archivist produced a second document. It established a chain of custody, a recorded path controlling who could hold or transfer the diary. Diana had designed it to keep the book beyond any reigning consort's authority. Camilla removed her reading glasses and placed them beside the diary. She turned to Charles and asked whether he intended to let the past dictate the future. The king said nothing. That silence answered her. She pushed back her chair and walked out. The door closed hard behind her as Catherine watched William studying his mother's handwriting. She understood the diary was not merely an inheritance. It was a message aimed at the next generation. But before Charlotte could learn what Diana had left behind, the adults around her would be forced to confront what each of them feared the diary might reveal. Princess Charlotte had never heard Diana's voice outside old recordings. She had never felt her embrace, watched her enter a room, or understood the force of her presence. Yet decades before Charlotte was born, the late princess had prepared something for her. That choice immediately transformed a private discovery into a deeply personal crisis, because every person surrounding the young royal understood that Diana had not selected a palace, a title, or an institution. She had selected a child. Catherine carried the burden of telling her. She asked Charlotte to join her in a private sitting room, away from aides, staff, and the tension still moving through Windsor. The castle mattered, because it was both a family home and a working royal residence, a place where private emotion was constantly trapped beneath public duty. William waited nearby, struggling with the knowledge that his mother had written for a daughter he had never imagined. Charlotte listened without interrupting. Her mother explained that archivists had discovered a hidden diary and that Diana's written instruction named her as the future recipient. The young princess did not smile. She did not reach for the document. Instead, she asked why her grandmother would trust her with something that had been hidden from everyone else. William felt the question strike deeper than he expected. He entered slowly, choosing each word with care. But Charlotte asked the question he feared most. Could the diary contain things Diana had wanted to tell him before she died? The prince looked away, and Catherine immediately understood that the discovery had reopened grief he had spent years learning to control. Anne later spoke with William through a private documented account preserved by the family archivist. The Princess Royal explained that Diana had often thought beyond the immediate succession, the official order deciding who inherits the throne. She believed royal daughters could carry enormous moral influence, even when the crown would never pass directly to them. Catherine then read one line from the accompanying instruction. Diana described Charlotte as the girl who may one day stand close enough to power to tell it the truth. The words unsettled William. Anne warned him that the diary might not offer comfort, because his mother had recorded pain with brutal honesty, rather than protecting the polished family history Charlotte had been taught. Catherine placed a photograph of Diana beside her daughter. Charlotte touched the frame and asked whether her grandmother had known she would exist. William turned away before answering that perhaps Diana had simply hoped someone like her would. Camilla remained alone in another wing, angry and deeply uneasy. She understood that Diana's influence might now pass through a granddaughter admired far beyond the palace walls. Anne remembered the moment everything had changed. The diary had been discovered at Windsor, but the reason it was hidden began years before in a conversation that convinced Diana the monarchy might one day try to silence her. Every royal secret has a point of origin, a single moment when fear becomes action. For Diana's diary, that moment came after a tense private dinner in 1996, when she learned that several boxes of her personal correspondence could be absorbed into royal custody after her death. She left the table shaken, returned to her rooms, and began writing instructions that would survive beyond titles, marriages, and reigns. That night became the point of no return, though no one inside the palace understood it then. Diana already knew how easily private pain could be reshaped once it entered official hands. Her separation from Charles had left uncertainty over who would control her letters, journals, recordings, and personal reflections. Royal custody meant documents could be placed under institutional control, where access might be restricted for years. She feared that anything embarrassing to powerful figures could be sealed, softened, or stripped of the truth that gave it meaning. The warning came during a private dinner at Kensington Palace in November 1996. A senior court official told Diana that her journals might be classified as historically sensitive royal material after her death. That term meant personal records could be withheld to protect the monarchy. He spoke calmly, but she heard the threat beneath the language. Diana waited until the official had gone before calling a trusted archivist into the room. She told him no institution should decide which parts of a woman's life were permitted to survive. The archivist recorded that conversation in a private custodial account, creating a documented explanation for every step that followed. That same night, Diana opened a new diary. She did not write it for Charles, William, Harry, or the public. She wrote for a future royal granddaughter who might one day understand the pressure placed on women standing close to the throne. Yet every page forced a painful choice. She wanted to protect her sons from further suffering, but she also wanted another young woman to enter royal life prepared rather than deceived. The archivist watched her draft strict instructions. The diary could never be transferred to the reigning monarch, the royal consort, or the palace communications office, the department responsible for managing official messages and public reputation. Diana then added one final condition by hand. The recipient must possess courage, emotional discipline, and the freedom to see the family from within without becoming owned by it. Diana closed the diary and pressed her palm against its cover. She looked at the archivist and said, "Not yet. One day, when there is a girl strong enough." Before dawn, he carried the sealed case through a private Kensington exit. Diana's precautions survived every change of reign, but now Camilla wanted to know whether William intended to honor the dead over the authority of the living. Camilla did not remain absent for long. Less than an hour after walking out, she requested a private meeting with William and made it clear that no archivists, advisors, or courtiers were to attend. When the prince entered, she was already standing beside the window, holding a copy of Diana's instructions. Neither offered a greeting. Between them lay decades of memory, resentment, and unfinished grief. This was no longer a discussion about a diary, it was a battle over authority. Camilla spoke first. She argued that any private document capable of affecting the crown had to be reviewed before it reached a young member of the family. The crown meant the monarchy as an institution, not merely the person wearing it. To her, the diary could damage public trust, reopen old wounds, and place Charlotte inside a conflict she had never created. William did not soften. He said Diana had deliberately removed the royal household from the decision because she feared the truth would be controlled. The prince warned that changing those instructions now would prove his mother had been right. What others called protection, he called interference. Camilla's restraint began to crack. She accused him of treating her as an intruder after years beside Charles. Years spent serving the monarchy and absorbing anger that had never disappeared. William answered that the diary was not a judgment on her marriage. It belonged to his mother, and its future belonged to Charlotte. The queen consort pressed harder. She warned that Diana's words could burden the young princess with grievances too painful for a child to carry. William replied that concealment would create an even deeper wound. One day, Charlotte would discover that the family had taken away something left specifically for her, and she would never forget who made that choice. Camilla then revealed what truly frightened her. The archive index, a list identifying the diary's chapters without exposing their contents, included one section titled, "The Woman Who Comes After Me." She believed it contained Diana's direct account of her relationship with Charles. William admitted he had already seen the title, but he refused to let fear become permission to break the seal. Camilla placed the copied instruction between them. She asked whether he honestly believed Diana would have chosen Charlotte had she known who would eventually become queen. William stepped closer. He said Diana had made the choice precisely because she understood how uncertain the future could become. His mother had not trusted a title. She had trusted a girl who might one day stand near power without surrendering to it. Camilla told him grief was controlling his judgment. William held her gaze and answered, "And fear is controlling yours." Neither moved, neither apologized. The confrontation ended without agreement, forcing Charles to decide whether the authority of the king could override the wishes of his former wife. William had drawn the emotional boundary, but only one person possessed the constitutional power to decide whether that boundary would stand. Charles had spent much of his life caught between personal loyalty and royal duty. Now those forces stood on opposite sides of his desk. Camilla wanted the diary reviewed. William demanded that Diana's instructions remain untouched. Charlotte waited without knowing that her future had become the subject of a family power struggle. The king read the archive documents twice, removed his glasses, and sat in silence. Whatever he decided would wound someone he loved and expose what kind of monarch he truly intended to be. Charles summoned the palace legal advisors before speaking to anyone else. Their written opinion was direct. The diary did not belong to the crown estate, the property and assets held for the sovereign's official role, so the monarch could not claim it automatically. Diana had placed it inside a private custodial trust, an arrangement giving appointed archivists legal responsibility, until Charlotte reached the required maturity. The finding struck Charles personally. Diana had not merely hidden her words. She had built protections against interference from a future monarch, and he understood that part of the restriction had been written with him in mind. The king felt the humiliation beneath the legal language. Even after death, his former wife had prepared for the possibility that he might try to control her voice. Camilla entered before he had finished reading. She asked her husband to protect the position they had spent years building together. The queen consort warned that an untouched diary could reopen the ugliest years of their marriage, revive old accusations, and reduce their entire life to Diana's private judgment. Anne refused to let fear decide the matter. In a documented family consultation recorded by the chief archivist, the Princess Royal reminded Charles that forcing the seal would confirm Diana's deepest suspicion, that the monarchy valued control more than truth. She urged her brother to understand that power used defensively could still become an abuse. Then the final warning emerged. The legal file stated that any attempt by the sovereign to seize the diary would automatically release Diana's written instructions to 3 independent historical institutions. The safeguard meant the palace could not interfere quietly. Any challenge would become public. Charles remained alone after everyone left. He held the custody order, traced Diana's signature with one finger, and placed the page face down. When Camilla returned, he stood at the window without turning. He told her the crown would not challenge the trust. Camilla asked whether Charlotte would receive the diary untouched. Charles answered yes. She gripped the back of a chair and said he had chosen Diana's wishes over the security of his living wife. The king finally turned and replied that he had chosen not to steal from his granddaughter. The legal struggle was over. The emotional damage was not. The king had protected Diana's final instruction, but in doing so, he had left Camilla facing a palace that suddenly seemed to be moving forward without her. The fallout did not arrive through a proclamation. It appeared in smaller, sharper ways. An unanswered message, a canceled engagement, an empty chair at dinner. By the following morning, Camilla had withdrawn from 2 scheduled briefings and refused to attend a family gathering at Windsor. The woman who had spent years securing her place beside the king now found herself excluded from the most emotionally significant decision of his reign. And for the first time, her absence did not stop the palace from continuing. Charles ordered the archivist to begin the formal transfer process. the controlled handover that would place the diary under Charlotte's protection. William and Catherine prepared their daughter for the emotional wait ahead, while palace staff received strict instructions. No copies, no summaries, and no photographs could be made before the young princess decided how the material should be handled. Camilla felt the wound deepen. She believed Charles had protected Diana's memory in public, while dismissing his living wife in private. When the king asked her to join the family that evening, she refused. The queen consort told him she would not sit through a gathering built around a decision that had left her fears outside the room. Charles withdrew further after the call ended. He knew the legal choice had been correct, yet correctness offered no comfort. The monarch had defended his granddaughter's rights, but he had also reopened the oldest fracture in his marriage, the question of whether Diana's presence would always stand between them. Then the archivist delivered another revelation. The diary contained several sealed inner sections, each marked with a different age at which Charlotte could choose to open it. The first carried a handwritten label, "For the day they tell you duty requires silence." That phrase suggested Diana had not created the diary merely to confess. She had designed it as guidance for a girl who might one day be pressured to endure pain without speaking. At dinner, Charles looked toward Camilla's untouched place setting. After several seconds, he quietly asked a footman to remove it. The chair scraped across the floor. William stopped speaking. Anne watched her brother lower his eyes, and the Princess Royal understood that the decision had cost him more than he would ever admit. Camilla removed the brooch she had chosen for the evening and returned it to its case. When an aide asked whether she might reconsider, she answered that there was no place for her at a table where Diana's memory carried greater authority than the Queen. Charlotte heard the tension and began to blame herself. She told Catherine she did not want the diary if accepting it would destroy the family. Her mother answered softly, "The damage came from the secrets, not from you." That truth changed everything. The palace had treated Charlotte as the center of the crisis, but no one had yet asked what she wanted, until William entered her room and closed the door behind him. There were no advisors in the room, no archivists, no royal titles spoken aloud. Only a father, a daughter, and the memory of a woman connecting them across time. William sat opposite Charlotte and admitted something he had avoided saying throughout the crisis. He was afraid of the diary too, not because it might disgrace the monarchy, but because it might contain the final words of a mother he had spent his entire adult life learning to lose. William told Charlotte she had the legal right to wait. The custody agreement, the arrangement controlling who could receive and protect the diary, gave her the choice to delay accepting it, and no one, not even Charles, could force her to read a single page. The prince wanted his daughter to understand that the book had been left as protection, not as an order to attack Camilla or expose old family pain. Charlotte listened carefully before asking whether accepting it would betray her grandfather. William answered that truth was not betrayal, though people could use it cruelly when anger became more important than understanding. He admitted that Diana's words might hurt Charles, but hiding them would also turn the family's fear into another form of control. Charlotte finally confessed what had frightened her most. She felt responsible for her father's grief, Camilla's anger, and the public's fascination with a grandmother she had never known. The young princess feared that one decision could disappoint everyone around her. William leaned forward and told her she was not responsible for repairing emotions created long before she was born. Then he revealed the sealed envelope. William explained that the archivists had found a short note accompanying the diary, and its instructions allowed Charlotte to hear it before opening the main seal. She hesitated, then asked him to read it. The note said women near the crown were often praised for enduring quietly. Diana had written that compassion did not require surrender, and loyalty did not mean allowing others to erase the truth. She wanted one future girl to know the difference. William's voice broke before the final sentence. Charlotte reached across the table and took his hand. For one quiet moment, the daughter steadied the father, and he understood that Diana's gift had already begun doing what she intended. Charlotte made her choice. She would accept the diary, read only the first authorized pages, and preserve the remaining sections until she was older. She would not allow curiosity, pressure, or public demand to control the pace. Then Charlotte added one condition of her own. Diana's words would never be used as a weapon against Camilla. William looked at his daughter and realized she had understood the diary more clearly than the adults who had fought over it. Charlotte had refused to turn Diana's pain into revenge, but beyond the palace gates, the world was already deciding what the diary meant. By sunrise, the diary was no longer a private royal matter. It dominated broadcasts, newspaper editions, and conversations across Britain. Yet the image that defined the story contained no document and no dramatic confrontation. It showed Princess Charlotte leaving St. George's Chapel beside William, her expression composed, while he kept one protective hand near her shoulder. To millions watching, she no longer appeared simply as a royal child. She looked like the guardian of a history the monarchy had never fully resolved. Buckingham Palace moved quickly. Its official statement confirmed that Diana's private diary had been transferred to Charlotte under a historic custodial instruction, a written order controlling who could protect the document and when it could be delivered. The announcement also made one point unmistakable. The contents would remain private, and the young princess alone would eventually decide whether any part should be shared. William understood why those words mattered. Without that protection, Charlotte could become trapped between public curiosity and palace pressure. Catherine understood something equally painful. Her daughter had inherited not only Diana's words, but the expectations of millions who still carried grief for the late princess. The debate exploded within hours. Some broadcasters argued that Charlotte had been burdened with adult pain she was too young to carry. Others praised William and Catherine for giving her control over an inheritance intended specifically for her. The parents remained silent, knowing every defense could create another headline. Camilla's walkout became impossible to separate from the story. Some viewers saw a frightened woman facing the return of old wounds. Others saw the queen consort trying to control Diana's final message. She had left one private meeting, but the public treated that departure as a declaration. Then the story changed direction. A leading evening broadcaster described the diary in a recorded news report as Diana's final act of protection for a royal granddaughter. The phrase shifted attention away from scandal and toward warning. Palace officials feared endless speculation about the unopened sections, yet Charlotte's refusal to release them denied the media the battle many expected. Outside Kensington Palace, hundreds gathered beneath the gates, carrying white roses, handwritten messages, and small blue notebooks representing the diary. One card carried a simple demand: let her read it in peace. The following morning, a major newspaper printed Charlotte beside William, beneath the headline, "Diana's Words, Charlotte's Choice." That front page delivered a stronger public verdict than any official announcement. Catherine watched the coverage beside her daughter until the commentary became intrusive. She switched off the television. Charlotte thanked her mother, then placed Diana's unopened diary inside a private cabinet herself. The crowds eventually dispersed and the headlines changed. But inside Windsor, 4 people still had to decide whether Diana's final gift would divide them or teach them how to live differently. The diary entered the palace as a threat. To Camilla, it represented judgment. To Charles, it reopened guilt. To William, it carried the voice of a mother lost too soon. To Charlotte, it initially felt like a burden she had never requested. But by the end, the hidden pages did something none of them expected. They did not destroy the monarchy or expose a final act of revenge. They forced the family to confront whether truth could exist without becoming a weapon. Charlotte accepted the diary under private custodial conditions, a legal arrangement that allowed her to control when and how the document could be opened. With William and Catherine beside her, she chose to read only the first authorized section. The remaining pages entered a secure personal archive beyond the reach of the monarch, the queen consort, palace officials, and the media. Charles then asked to speak with Charlotte alone. He told his granddaughter she did not owe the crown silence, but she did owe herself patience. The king finally admitted that Diana's fears had not been without foundation. Charlotte answered that she would not judge him through someone else's pain. He kissed her forehead and thanked her, his relief breaking through years of regret. Camilla returned to Windsor after several days away. She did not apologize for fearing the diary, but she admitted to Charles that walking out had allowed fear to speak before dignity could. The queen consort knew the moment had exposed more than anger. It had revealed how deeply Diana's memory still shaped her place within the family. Charlotte met Camilla soon afterward. The monarch told her the diary belonged to her and would never again be challenged. The young princess answered that Diana's memory should not be treated like a side that had to defeat someone else. Camilla heard the truth in those words and accepted it without argument. Charlotte placed the diary inside a cabinet beside a photograph of Diana. William watched without interfering. Charles stood beside Camilla as his granddaughter closed the door and turned the key herself. No one opened the diary further. No statement revealed its contents. Charlotte's authority over the inheritance became complete and permanent. Diana's final influence had not been built upon revenge. It rested upon choice, the right of a future royal woman to understand the past without being controlled by it. Camilla's walkout became the final eruption of an older royal order, one that feared private truth more than public scandal. Charlotte represented something different. She protected Diana's voice, spared her family needless humiliation, and refused to confuse compassion with silence. Diana left behind a diary, but her true inheritance was courage, and when Charlotte turned the key, the monarchy finally understood that truth did not have to destroy a family to set it free. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.